All right. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. If you've been following along this month, you know that we have been exploring space. We've been talking to scientists, to engineers, and even astronauts, and learning all about what it takes to explore our planet, to explore our solar system, and even further beyond out into our universe. So if you do have a moment, head over to our website, exploringbytheseat.com. You can find all the space exploration events that are still coming up. There's even an event page there specifically with those events. We hope to see your class joining for a few more of those. And of course, you can always catch the events later on YouTube if you can't make them live. All right, we've got a great group of classrooms joining us from across North America and even as far away as Portugal today. So it's going to be a really great event. We are joined by Janelle Wellons. She works at the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory as an instrument operations engineer. So she's won various awards, including the JPL Bruce Murray Award for inspiring students to engage in STEM. And her job consists of planning, generating, and validating the commands to operate scientific instruments in flight, as well as monitoring the health and safety of the spacecraft. So she's worked on missions exploring Saturn, the moon, and our own planet Earth. Let's bring Janelle in live with us now. Hey, Janelle, how you doing today?
Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to be here today.
All right. Well, Janelle, it's great to see you. Like I mentioned, we've got an awesome group of students who are excited to get to know you a little bit better. And then I have a feeling they're going to have a lot of questions for you as well.
I'm ready for the questions, of course.
All right, perfect. Well, I'm going to let you take over for a little bit, and then we'll keep things moving along.
Sounds great. Hi, everybody. My name is Janelle Wellons, and I figure that if I'm going to tell you the story of how I got to NASA and what I do there, I might as well start at the beginning, or at least my beginning. So let me share some slides with you. Here we go. Interesting. Are you able to see?
Yeah, I can see them loading up now, Janelle.
Perfect. Okay, so here was my beginning. This is me when I was younger, and I got to go to my mom's job for Bring Your Child to Work Day. And even though neither one of my parents were scientists or engineers, my mom actually worked with them. And while at this time I wasn't exactly sure what an engineer did, what I knew was that they got to make things and they were curious, just like me. So I loved getting to put on the safety goggles and be at the messy desk, just pretend for a day that I could make things. Let's fast forward a little bit to high school. So I'm in my junior year of high school, and all of a sudden, my classmates are talking about school, colleges, universities, what they're going to major in, what they want to be when they grow up. And I realize, I'm not exactly sure I know what I want to do tomorrow, let alone for college. Is very overwhelming. And I had started to get mail, lots of mail addressed to me, which is something that never happened, by the way. And it started to accumulate, and this mail was coming from colleges and universities from all over the country. Oh, hey, look at our track program here. Oh, hey, we've got a literature program. Oh, this would be great for you. And I remember not knowing exactly what I wanted to do because, yeah, I thought that engineering was pretty cool, but I also really loved math and I also really loved to read and write. So I wasn't exactly sure what was the best thing for me. So I started to take this mail and put it underneath my bed, store it away, forget about it. And when I ran out of room there, I started to just throw it in the trash can, which I don't recommend you doing, by the way. And on one of these days, I came home and the mail was sitting there waiting for me. Took a look, it's going to go in the trash. My mom happened to be home that day and she saw me walking this mail over to the trash can and noticed that on top there was a pamphlet from a school called MIT. And sorry, my cat is going to be joining us this morning because I had to shut my door, not be too loud. But my mom saw that this pamphlet was from a school called the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And I don't know about any of you, but I had never heard of it. But thankfully, my mom had. And what she knew was that MIT was a really good school. So we needed to look at this. All right, mom, let's look at it. So we look at the pamphlet, and it's talking about this program for juniors going into their senior year of high school. And basically, if you got in, you got to take all of these STEM related classes, you got to be with other students from around the country, like maybe 70 other students. You got to live there. I mean, it was pretty cool. You just had to apply. So my mom was like, all right, you're applying. And I just thought, oh, gotta write these essays, get these teacher recommendations, just more work, right? But I applied the night before, as a procrastinator, sent it in, totally forgot about it until one of my classmates was asking what everyone was going to do that summer, and I suddenly remembered about this thing I applied to at this school called MIT. He said, MIT, do you understand how impossible it is to get into that school or any of its programs? It's like, oh, no, I did not know that. So that night, I actually researched for the first time a little bit more about this program, and I found out that the previous year, they had received over 2,000 applications, but only accepted one from the state of New Jersey, which is where I was from. So not looking good, right? I mean, okay, I'm not even number one in my own public high school shared by at least three other towns. So why would a school that's looking for perfection, that perfect SAT score, those perfect grades, all A's, no mistakes. It just didn't make sense that they would want someone like me. So that day I went home and gleefully told my mom that I told you so, you wasted my time. She's like, ah, yeah, yeah. So when I was at spring track practice and my mom called me saying, oh, Janelle, you need to come home. There's a package in the mail. I'm telling her, okay, I'll get there, but I don't want you to get too excited, mom. She said, just come home. So I just came home and I get home and my mom, and she's waiting in the doorway and she's holding this package and she's like, open it. I'm like, mom, I just don't want you to get your hopes up. And she's like, Janelle, do you think they send you a package to tell you that you didn't get it? I said, oh, wait a second. I did not think of it that way. I opened that package up and I read the first word and it said, congratulations. Oh my gosh, I could not believe it. Are you serious? A school at MIT? MIT that I could come to this program? Really? We danced, we celebrated, and it just goes to show that you never know what's going to happen when you take a chance on yourself. Man, if it was up to me, I would have never done it. But hey, thankfully my mom saw something and thought it was worth to take the chance. Just try it. You never know what's on the other side. And after I went to that program, this is what was on the other side. MIT. I had found my dream school. I applied there, I got there, and I fell in love. I took an intro class on aerospace engineering because I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and frankly, I thought space was pretty cool. And that's when I found out that my professor was an astronaut. And I don't know how many times you get a teacher who is like an actual astronaut. And I made up my mind right then and there, space was for me. I spent 4 years at MIT studying aerospace engineering, trying and failing. Definitely had some failures along the way. Getting to know this cool campus where you play Tetris on the side of the building just because you get bored, I guess, and build roller coasters for incoming freshmen. This was my home. And at my home, I kept hearing about this magical place called JPL, or the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory. I had never heard of this place before, but I soon learned that, hey, let's pretend that we're going to send a rover to Mars like JPL. Let's pretend we're going to go to Saturn like JPL, or Venus, or JPL. It just kept showing up. So I knew that's the place I wanted to work. And I applied for the internship and I didn't get it. And I applied for the internship and I didn't get it. And then it was senior year and there was no more internship. It was just full-time roles. But you know what? Once again, didn't give up on myself. Took all those rejections as an invitation to improve. And so I applied one final time and I got an interview with not just one hiring supervisor, but three. And I remember rushing to my interview. I wanted to be on time and ripping my skirt. Oh my gosh, so embarrassing. And going into the interview room and just facing forward because I didn't want them to see it. But in the end, I finally did land the job and began working at JPL as an instrument operations engineer, which what in the world is that, by the way? I remember seeing that on the letter of signing and thinking, oh yeah, of course. And then actually getting to California and coming to the lab, seeing the sign, NASA JPL next exit, and thinking, oh man, what have I got myself into? What am I supposed to do here? But hey, found out, no worries. JPL is a place of learning, it's a place of working together. And when I got to JPL, I was working together with a team that taught me exactly what being this type of engineer was all about. When I break it down, basically it's my job to talk to things in space. So these instruments are scientific. They answer questions like why, how, what, when about the places that we go and explore. And I'm an operations engineer because I operate them. And I operate them by using these giant antennas located all over the world that are a part of the Deep Space Network and more, depending on where the spacecraft has actually gone. And to operate them, I send them commands using my computer. But they're not commands like move left or move right, written like a human can understand. Instead, they're commands written in zeros and ones, bits, or binary. And these actually could be decoded and translated into messages like dare mighty things, the JPL mantra. So I've been at JPL for 5 years now. And in that time, I've worked on 5 projects, one at Saturn, one at the moon, and 3 now on Earth. I consider myself an Earthling now. And as an instrument operations engineer, I've had the opportunity to operate incredible instruments like the cameras on the Cassini mission to Saturn that took images like this. Like, what? Like, wow, can't even believe it's real, right? You look at this and think, oh, someone drew this. No, humans went there. We sent a spacecraft to Saturn that took these absolutely incredible images of Saturn, its rings, its moons, and more. And I'm so grateful I've gotten to be a part of that. And right now, I'm working on my Earth missions that are getting geared up to get to space and going into the lab hands-on and working with the flight hardware, basically the hardware that will eventually make its way up there, and testing to make sure that once we get to space, we know how to operate it. So that's me in a nutshell, and I would absolutely love to get your questions. Thank you.
All right. That's great, Janelle. Thanks so much. That's really exciting. And yeah, what a trajectory from being nervous and not maybe not having that self-belief to taking a chance, and who knows what can happen.
Right.
And I think, I'm sure we've all heard the quotes about taking chances, or you miss all the shots you don't take. It's always worth, trying and putting yourself out there, and hopefully you learn from those experiences.
Yes, exactly.
Very cool. All right. Well, we're going to start meeting some classrooms. We're also going to have a little Kahoot quiz shortly, too, to see how well students were paying attention and listening today. And so I'm pulling that together behind the scenes. So we'll do that shortly. But for now, let's start meeting some of our groups. Like I said, we've got a great group today. So those who are tuning in online, I know we've got Fletcher's Creek said hi in Brampton. And I know we've got Class 706 joining us as well. Looks like they're always up for anything STEAM. So send in some of those questions via the chat and I'll work some of those in. But for now, let's start meeting a couple of our camera classrooms. So where should we go first? We are going to go to Miss Smith's crew. It looks like some grade 7-8s hanging out with us in Mississauga. Let's bring them in. How are we doing today, Mississauga? All right.
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
We have a question here from Logan, so I'm going to let Logan move in close to ask the question.
Hi, Logan.
Hi. Have you met any famous people on like a space exploration? I fell.
Oh, that's okay. You said, have I met famous people in space exploration? Like, I guess like astronauts, or do you mean just famous people, period?
Oh, like astronauts.
Ah, yes, I have. I've met quite a few astronauts. I don't remember all of their names, which is terrible. It's because they were a while ago. So when I was in college, we actually got astronauts who came to the school every now and then. And every time they did, I would get with my friends and I'm like, hey, I heard that they're going to be in this hallway at this time. And we would actually sneak in and just look around and say, hey, does anyone look like an astronaut here? We wanted so badly to get those autographs. And I actually got one astronaut who came to visit one of the clubs I was in to sign the book Ender's Game. Not sure you heard of it. And I have that sitting downstairs. And of course, there was my professor who was an actual astronaut who I got to have many adventures with, because as it turned out, he would end up being my advisor when I ended up doing research on lunar greenhouses in Italy. And so I've gotten to actually work side by side with people like that. And that doesn't even mention all of the celebrities at JPL themselves. I've been at the coffee cart talking with friends and been like, hey, it's kind of crazy that things work here. I mean, it's like a miracle. Everything has to go right and everything is so complex. And my friend's like, yeah, it really is a miracle. And then this guy behind us in line to get coffee was like, yeah, it really is a miracle anything works here. And we're all laughing about it. And he walks away and my friend says, Janelle, did you know that that was the chief engineer of the entire lab? I was like, oh, no, I did not. But those interactions happen all the time at JPL. And it's kind of a reason why I love it, because you never know who you may run into. And people are very, very happy to talk about what they do and very proud of their work. Hope that answers your question.
I'm going to pop them back in because they have to leave a little bit early today. So I want to make sure they get another question in if they have one. And you're right. I mean, when you're planning a mission that is going to launch, take years to travel somewhere like Saturn, take pictures, send them back to Earth. I mean, so many things have to go right.
Right.
Hi.
Hello.
So I was just wondering, have you ever seen or have any proof of life from other planets?
Good
Have you ever
question.
found any evidence of that?
That is a great, great question. And so those scientific instruments that I was mentioning earlier, the ones that answer the questions, well, the Cassini mission had quite a few of them. And one of the moons that we were observing in our time at Saturn, because the Cassini mission actually ended, one of the moons we saw was called Enceladus, had these absolutely beautiful tiger stripes in ice. So imagine this hard ice shell and this running ocean water, very similar to ones here on Earth running underneath. And what we really wanted to do is like dig in there. What is in this moon's core? Because, as we hear, where there is water, there is life. And so we have definitely picked up on cues that life could exist in places other than our own planet right here in our solar system. We don't even have to go that far. And there are actually quite a few missions on the way right now that are trying to answer those questions at icy moons like Europa, at Jupiter, and even on Mars, where if you follow the Perseverance rover, we're finding more traces of actual water on Mars. And so it'd be very interesting and very exciting to see what the scientists say about these findings that they receive. And wow, it'd be very cool. We did find life here in our solar system, not on Earth.
All right. Absolutely. That would change everything, knowing that we're not alone, that there is life out in the universe. When I think about it, I think, every galaxy has billions and billions of stars. There's billions and billions of galaxies. I think it's hard to believe that we're the only spot, this one tiny little spot, in all those billions and billions of galaxies with billions and billions of stars with untold numbers of planets. Who knows? But it's exciting that we're looking.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there.
All right. Very cool. Well, let's head over. Let's jump across the Atlantic. Let's go to Portugal. We have a class, looks like some high schoolers hanging out with us today with Mr. Mark. So I'm going to bring them into the call here. There we go. Hey, everyone. How we doing?
Everything okay? And with you?
Sounds good. Yeah, looks good.
Okay.
Nice to see everyone.
Okay, we have some questions. They are a little shy, so I have to bring to the front to ask some questions. And I have one person to do that.
Okay.
Hi, Janelle. First of all, I'm so sorry if I struggle with some words. It's because I'm really nervous about talking with you. But a question that I wanted to ask you is, how's it feeling to work on NASA? Have you ever imagined yourself working on NASA? Like, NASA is, I can't even explain. This is my question. Just how's it feeling to work on NASA?
Oh man, how does it feel to be here at NASA, working at NASA? I'll tell you, first of all, I never dreamed or imagined that I would be working for NASA one day. Like, not even once. I grew up in a place where nobody worked for NASA. Nobody knew anyone who worked for NASA, let alone know an astronaut. It was just so far from my mind. I mean, I've always thought that space was cool, right? Space is cool. You got these black holes, the planets, this mystery of the universe. But for me, working in space, you might as well have said, I want to grow up to be a princess one day. It's not something that happens to a normal person. And I am by all means a normal person. And so, to actually be here, it has completely opened my eyes to the fact that we are so hard on ourselves as people. We look at our dreams and think, I would love to do this, but it's not for me. When the reality is that people are limitless. We can do anything. And there's never a point where it's all over for you. Think about it. Like, I tried to get the internship at NASA multiple times and I never got it. And I could have just given up. I could have just thought, oh, this is the universe telling me that no matter what I do, even if I get to MIT, NASA, I'm not ever going to be able to be someone who works at NASA. And now I'm actually here. And how does that feel? I mean, it feels like in a lot of ways a dream come true, because when I think about my work, it's not that we work to make products. Instead, I think of our work as working to make history, doing things for the first time and doing things to benefit humanity. And it feels so fulfilling and incredible to be a part of an organization that thinks that way. And that's why I'm grateful every day to be here.
All right, let's bring our crew back in, see if they have another question. That was a great question.
Another question.
I think they have another one.
Okay. We can also circle back too.
Oh,
You can ask the question.
I can. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just a simple one. But I would like to ask if, how can I say this? Have you,
Wait, só. Sim, sim. She's gonna have help.
Oh, okay, sure.
Esqueci.
Vai lá.
Have you, would you like to go on space if you have an opportunity to go, if they give you an opportunity to go on space? Like exploring planets or even discovering new galaxies? Like, would you like it? Would you appreciate it if they give you that opportunity?
Absolutely. If somebody appeared at my door today and said, Janelle, I know this might seem random, but we want you to go to space tomorrow. I'm like, yes. How many chances? I mean, when you think about astronauts and you think about people who have been to space, it's a very select few. It's just a handful of people throughout the years in humanity who have had the opportunity to actually reach space. Sorry, my cat is unhappy about my closed door right now. And man, honestly, really what I want to see if I did get the chance to go to space is I want to look back at planet Earth. I would love to just see Earth from space, all of it, because when we talk about space, it can get so easy and exciting to be like, oh man, what's your favorite planet? Oh, Saturn, it's got the rings, or Mars, the red planet, it's where we may go next. I mean, there's so much out there to explore. But at the end of the day, for me at least, Earth is always going to be my favorite planet. And the reason why is because it's our home. And frankly, it's the most interesting planet. Here on Earth, we've got the green, the blue. We have life. We have animals. We have waterfalls, volcanoes. We have people. We have our families. This is our home. And anything that I can do in my work at JPL, working on these Earth missions, finding ways to monitor pollution in different cities around the world, finding ways to monitor how our Earth is changing over time, I want to be a part of that, because to be an Earthling means to care about your home. And so if I went to space, that magic moment for me would be turning back and seeing the blue dot, seeing our home from afar, and really getting that appreciation for it.
All right, very cool. Well, we're going to grab a couple more questions. We'll take a little pause for our Kahoot action, and then we'll jump into a few more questions. So I want to go, we've got a classroom joining us in London, Ontario. They're in the call with us right now, but their devices aren't connected, but they sent me a few questions here. So let's go with the first one here. Ooh, it's going to be a tricky one. They're wondering, what kind of calculations do you have to do with your job, and how long did it take Cassini to reach Saturn?
Great question. I'll answer the last one first because that one's a pretty easy answer. How long did it take Cassini to reach Saturn? Well, it launched in 1997, when I was 3 years old. So I wasn't even aware of Cassini when it first left Earth. But it actually took it 7 years to get to Saturn. That's how far away Saturn is from Earth. We're talking about 900 million miles away. Far, not very far. And it took a couple of pit stops. We used something called a gravity assist to go around Earth, I believe Venus, then back Earth, then slingshot past Jupiter, finally to do orbit insertion at Saturn. So it took 7 years. Crazy long time. The other question was, what kind of calculations do you do in your work? And give me 1 second. Gotta let my cat out. I don't know if you heard her meow, but she was very happy to be let out. So, calculations. My job as an operations engineer is to figure out how are we going to send these commands to the instrument and how are we going to monitor that it's performing the way that we hope it is. Nothing's going wrong, nothing's in the red or the yellow. So, one of the calculations that I am doing on a project right now is about data. How much data will we be collecting? How much storage do we have? And how are we going to get that all back to Earth without losing any of it? And so, building a software tool that takes into consideration a whole bunch of things, how much data we're able to actually send and receive, which is dictated by the antennas that we actually use on the ground. If you look up antennas, you learn all sorts of things about comms, communication systems in space. So we have that. Then you have the actual memory. Think about memory available on your phone or your computer. It'll let you know you have this much space left. So we have to know how much space is left to know how much data we can actually save. And then when are we actually going to have a chance to downlink the data, send it back to Earth to one of those big antennas and process it here on the ground. So I'm doing lots of calculations that has something to do with data, and I'd say that's my highest priority calculation at the moment.
All right, very cool. Okay, let's take a little pause here and let's jump into a Kahoot break. So let's see how well the students have been listening to some of those questions, to the presentation, see what they're taking away. So if you head to kahoot.it, it's going to ask you for a PIN number, and lucky for you, I have one of those handy. I can see some with their personal devices at their desk. That's great. If you don't have that in your classroom, you can just play with the teacher at the front of the room. So anybody can join. So let's go. Let's share that screen and start that Kahoot. Okay, our PIN for today, 801-4847. Let's give a few moments here for a couple students to start joining us, and then we will dive right in. There we go.
Good luck, everyone. I wonder if I could get my own Kahoot quiz right.
I would think you'd have a little insider knowledge. You might be
got an answer key.
Yeah. All right, there we go. Students joining in.
Wow, so many students.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, hello.
It's a great group joining us today. 3 different countries, lots of different students. All right, so just a reminder, it is going to be 20 seconds per question. Quicker you answer that question, the more points you get. Of course, it has to be right. If you answer it fast and it's wrong, well, we got nothing for you. So the quicker you get that right answer in, the more points you're going to get. I think we'll get things going now with our first question. Here we go. All right. What part of NASA does Janelle work for? Was it Goddard Space Flight Center, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, Ames Research Center, or Johnson Space Center?
Oh.
Answers, they're trickling in. So I think a few of them are thinking about it. All right, there we go. Couldn't fool most of them. Jet Propulsion Laboratory. MPPT is in the lead, and let's jump into our next question. What university did Janelle attend? Was it Yale? Was it MIT, Harvard, or UCLA? Looks like they're going a little faster with this one. All right, MIT. Good job, everyone. I always hear about MIT, especially the robotics. I know they've got a great robotics, and I'm sure many other courses and opportunities there. So Samuel has taken the lead there, but it's close. Here we go. Question 3. How would you describe Janelle's job? Was it sending messages to space instruments, repairing space instruments, designing space instruments, or building space instruments?
That's a good question.
That's a good question. Janelle mentioned right at the beginning how she would summarize her job really easily. All right.
right. You all were paying attention. Wow.
Good job, team. Evan is taking the lead. It's a seesaw. It's going back and forth. What is used to communicate with instruments in space? Was it lasers? Was it phone text messages? Was it carrier pigeons? Or was it big antennas around the world? What did Janelle say is used or she uses? I'm hoping we don't get a lot of carrier pigeons. Never know.
You never know.
All
Got
right.
a few.
3 went with the carrier pigeons. It's a long way to go. Big antennas around the world. And our final question, we talked about this specifically just a moment ago. Let's see what we do. What planet did Cassini explore? Was it Saturn, Jupiter, Neptune, or Mercury?
I don't know.
And there's that famous picture. Looking back, and you can see the little dot, the pale blue dot of Earth.
Yep.
All right. Most went with Saturn. Let's see where we shake down on our podium. 3rd place to grade 6. That's our class in London. 2nd to Joe. There must be another Joe out there. And 1st place went to Evan. All right.
Congratulations.
Good job, everybody. Thanks for playing along today. Let's jump right back into some more Q&A action. Stop that screen share. This time we're going to Mrs. Murray's class. So Mrs. Murray's class, where are they there? There they are. Looks like they're listed in Aurelia. Let's bring them into the call here. There we go. Hey, Miss Murray's class, how are we doing?
Good morning. We're good.
All right, good to see everyone. Are you guys studying space? I think you're grade 6s.
We will be. We haven't started yet. We started with biodiversity this year, but we will get
It's a good
into
one,
space
too.
later.
All
I
right.
have Eric here who has a question.
Perfect.
Kind of strange question. What is the hardest thing you have ever had to work on? Like,
What would be the most challenging job?
That's a tough one. 2 things come to mind, but let's see. I'm gonna go with this one. So after I was done on the Cassini mission at Saturn, the mission ended, so I needed to do something else. And I was at the time also working on a project at the moon, but it was pretty smooth sailing. It had been in space for quite a long time already. After I learned the ropes, I knew how to command it. I knew how to check on it. And then I was, my manager said, all right, Janelle, how about you join this new project? And the thing is, it's different than all the projects you worked on so far because it's actually not in space yet. It's still very early on. We're still designing it, and we'd love for you to be a part of that. And I'm like, okay, yeah. So I joined this project, and it's called the Multi-Angle Imager for Aerosols, or MAIA for short. And, this MAIA mission was all about monitoring cities all around the world from space to draw relationships between the types of particulate matter or these small particles that can cause health issues in people and the health problems that the people in those areas face so that we can kind of draw some conclusions about policies that helps to make living there better. So really cool mission, really cool goal. That's our goal, to do something that helps people. But I had never worked on something that wasn't in space already. There was no guide for me to follow that said, okay, Janelle, when you come into work, you need to do A, B, C, and D. Instead, they were telling me that I need to figure out what the guide was. How are we going to operate it? And I remember going into a meeting very early on and being a part of a conversation where we're talking about the design. What should we do? And, the engineers were a little bit arguing with each other. I think we should do it this way. No, I think we should do it that way. And I remember I put my hand up and said, maybe we can think about how we send the commands. Maybe we should be encrypting them. And one of the lead engineers looked at me and said, well, what do you mean by that? And I remember thinking, I don't know. I wanted to contribute, but I was so afraid and nervous. I didn't even know how to answer his question. And I remember that the hardest thing about being on that project was overcoming the barrier of being confident. I'm in this room with people who have done this for years, and I've never done this before in my life. And I think what really helped me to overcome that is that we used to have these meetings for scientists. All the scientists would gather and we would go to them. And on breaks, they would put out food for us, right? They'd have like fruit, crackers, and stuff so you could go eat, talk to people. And at the end, I noticed that that lead engineer I was telling you about that was like, well, what are you talking about? Who scared me. I never wanted to talk in that meeting again. I saw him over by the snack table with a Ziploc bag, and he was putting in all these snacks. Like he was saving the cookies. And I was like, oh, I call him Bob. Hey, Bob, what are you doing? He was like, these cookies are really good. Do you want a bag? And it just made me laugh so much. And that moment made me realize that Bob, as intimidating as he was and, expert as he was also a person. He was a real life human being who liked cookies and was taking a bunch home from this event, which I found so funny. And after I realized that I was working with people and I didn't have any reason to be afraid or nervous around people, it made me enjoy the project so much more. And now we work together every week and I feel no fear. I'm confident finally.
All right, very cool. Great story. And I think that is something important to remember is whether it's university professors or people working at NASA, movie stars, whatever, everybody's just a regular person. And they got to their spot by, taking some chances, taking some risks and doing what they were passionate about. So I like that story about the Cookie Monster engineer. I think that's a great story. Mrs. Murray's crew, do you have another question for us?
I think we have one more question.
Excellent.
Come on up, Austin. Okay. She can hear you. You're unmuted. Yep. Just talk.
Hi, Austin.
Hi. Wait. Hi. My question is, back in 2020, I think it was, were you part of the mission where they sent the rover to Mars? I forgot what it was called.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mars rover.
Yeah. Great question. Was I part of Mars 2020 or the Perseverance rover that launched in 2020? It actually launched a day before my birthday. That was so exciting. I was watching downstairs on the couch, like, oh my gosh. The whole lab was watching. Actually, we had like this giant Zoom set up so we could watch together. It was so fun. Now, so many people at JPL had a chance to work on that project. I got a chance to work on a little tiny, think smaller than the ant part of the project. But in actuality, my friends, my coworkers, they did the bulk of the work to make that incredible mission happen. Now, if you're interested in what exactly I did, well, one of my friends was in charge of testing one of the instruments, these instruments we talk about. And she's like, hey, Janelle, I know that you're going to eventually have to test some of the instruments you're working on. Remember that picture of me with the net on and the mask and the suit, the white suit? I have eventually started getting in the lab to test instruments. She was right. She said, hey, how about you try it out by testing one of Mars 2020's instruments called Sherlock? It's like, okay, sure. So I go into the lab and we would work these 8 or 9 hour shifts where it's basically your responsibility to make sure nothing goes wrong during the test. About 3 of us in the room. We're there to keep each other awake because oftentimes these tests go around the clock, which means I could come into work at 8 o'clock and that's when my shift starts, and monitor the temperature of the vacuum chamber, which basically simulates space. There's no air in space. So this vacuum sucks all the air out and gives you that more realistic space environment to run your tests. So that's exactly what we were doing. And I was monitoring on the big TV, making sure we don't drop below any certain levels or go above any certain levels. So that's the very small part I played, but I have to hand it to all of my coworkers. They did incredible work and it was so exciting to watch.
Absolutely. I highly recommend, if you haven't yet, going on YouTube. I think it's called 7 Minutes of Terror. Does that sound right?
That's the one for curiosity. I think for 2020, you can just search Mars 2020 or
Yeah.
Perseverance landing. And Joe is so right. Go to YouTube, because for the first time ever, they attached tons of cameras all over the rover, and you got to see the parachute deploy. You got to see the crane lower the rover down to touch the ground softly. Oh my goodness. It's a wild ride. You have to watch it.
All right, very cool. We've got one more class to visit today. We need to visit Mr. Andrews. He's got 6th graders hanging out with him. Let us bring him in. I know he already typed a question in. His class is virtual. Hey, Mr. Andrews, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
Great. Hi, Mr. Andrews.
Hi, it has been awesome. Thank you so much for putting this on. We've got a few questions for you from my class. Oh, sorry, I've just got to unmute them so they can hear me talk as well. How many planets have you sent commands to, or how many projects have you worked on?
So I have sent commands to Saturn, our moon, and our planet Earth. And I've worked on 5 projects. So the Cassini mission to Saturn. Let's learn more about Saturn, perhaps how old the rings are, what's in the interior of the planet. I've sent commands to an instrument on the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter on the moon called Diviner. And it's Diviner's job to measure the surface temperature of the moon. And through that, we were able to make an entire map of the moon, which is super cool. And determined that on the moon's poles, it gets extremely cold, like cold enough for there to be ice. And so that's been super helpful, because right now NASA is planning to go back to the moon and beyond to Mars through the Artemis mission. So knowing where to land and knowing where the resources are, because ice equals water equals many other things, rocket fuel, is quite incredible. So I've gotten to work on that. And then for my Earth mission that I sent commands to, the only one of my Earth missions that's in space right now is called Sentinel-6. And it's my job to monitor all of the instruments that JPL has developed. But that one's pretty cool because it's a partnership with international entities. So I actually get to work with people based out of Germany for that one. And it's really cool to get on calls in the morning and hear the accents. I hear German accents on my missions that haven't launched yet, SWAT and Maya. SWAT is working with people in France, so I get to hear French accents. It's just really good time. It's a really cool time, and I love all these partnerships. So hopefully that gives you a good summary. 3 planets, 5 instruments.
All right, very cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's so cool. Another question we have is there a project that you are looking forward to working on in your career? Is there something that you want to be part of?
Yeah. If I had to think just off the top, I think it'd be very cool to one day just try my hand in the world of the Martians or Mars land. I think it'd be very cool to work on this mission called Mars Sample Return. Now, Perseverance, the rover that we just landed on Mars this past February, is making sample tubes of regolith, or you can think of it as Mars dirt and rock samples that it finds along the way. And it's putting them in these capsules and putting them in the ground. And it's putting them in the ground because a future mission called Mars Sample Return is going to return to those spots in the ground, get those capsules, send it back into orbit at Mars, and then eventually bring it back home to Earth, which is so cool. Like, this is so sci-fi, so like futuristic. You feel like you read about these things in books. You don't actually do them in real life. So I think it'd be pretty cool to be on the operations team for that. Got so many moving parts.
All right, very cool. Well, Janelle, what a great time we've had hanging out with you today. And I think the big take-home message of being curious and going after what you're passionate about is so important. Having that confidence that you're gonna crash and burn, right? You're gonna trip, you're gonna fall, but it's what you do. If you get back up, dust yourself off, learn from it, and continue on, that really makes all the difference in the world, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to say anything, like the final words, it would be to just think about stories that you've read in the past. I don't know how many people have read Harry Potter or maybe The Hunger Games or any of those great fantasy stories. Now, when I read them, can you imagine what would have happened if when Hagrid came to Harry's house and said, "Harry, you're a wizard. Get on my motorcycle. I'm going to take you to the wizarding world." And Harry was just like, "No, that's okay. I'm just going to stay here." Or, can you imagine, there's a sword in front of you and oh, wow, it's glowing. It's calling your name. And instead of picking it up, you say, "No, I'm just gonna live my life. That's not for me." Your story doesn't start. You can't become the hero in your story until you choose to be. There are going to be opportunities put right in front of you, but you have to choose to take them. And while we don't know what's going to happen later, you don't know what's going to happen in the future. It's the unknown. Man, it can be an exciting unknown. And that unknown can lead you to work for a place like NASA, just like me. So make sure that you're active in your own story. Be the hero in your own story. Pick up the sword and start your adventure.
All right. I love it, Janelle. A huge shout out to all the classrooms who joined us via YouTube today, to all the camera classrooms. Thanks so much for spending time with us, hanging out in the Kahoot. Again, Janelle, what a pleasure to hang out. And we definitely hope we can catch up with you in a future hangout.
Absolutely great. Thank you so much for having me, Joe. Thank you everyone for coming. This has been
All right. I'll pop in a
amazing.
few of the crews who are still hanging out with us. Thanks, everyone. It was great to see you today. Thanks
Thank
for all those
you.
great questions. And we are going to sign off for now.